Today is August 30th, 2019. I am interviewing Robert D. Powers,
C-O-W-E-R-S.
Powers, at his home in Butler, Pennsylvania. Mr. Powers is 73 years of age and was born on March 19th, 1946. I am Chuck Jennings, the interviewer. I am being assisted by Kurt Essman, the videographer. Mr. Powers, what branch of service were you in?
Army.
And what was the highest rank you achieved?
E6 Staff Sergeant.
And you went through several countries. Could you name those where you served?
I served in Vietnam, Germany, Korea, and a visit to Japan.
Well, before we get into your military experience, let's talk about high school. Where'd you go to high school at?
Butler High.
And did you do anything there?
Played a little football.
And did you have any friends that you played with?
Oh yeah, Terry Hanreddy, Richard Ronsall, Bill Reddick, Dickie White.
Now, did you work any
Yeah.
during that time?
I worked at the Butler Theater for 35 cents an hour, and local jobs at a hardware store for about 40 cents an hour. And then I went into so-called welding school at Pullman Standard.
And what was that program about?
It was initially offered to general kids, guys that took the general's education subject. And it was supposedly learn how to weld, get hired on with Pullman Standard. The course was about 4 weeks long approximately. And they taught us the basics of welding with the intention of being hired and getting a full-time job.
Now, but that didn't quite work out. So what happened there?
The referral letters kept coming, you're going to be hired, you're going to be hired. But the time I graduated from the welding school, till the government knew I was free, I got my draft notice. So much I didn't get a chance. And the school never opened up for all the guys that enrolled and went through the school, the training. As far as I know, nobody ever got hired through it.
You were in Harrisburg moving something?
Yeah.
What? Tell me about that.
One morning about, I guess, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, I hear a knock on my apartment door. And I went and opened the door, and there was these two guys, about 6'9", at the time seemed that big, suits. One had a piece of paper in his one hand, and the other one showing me an FBI badge. And he said to me, "Robert Powers?" I says, "Yeah." They explained who they were. He says, "We have your draft notice. We've been looking for you for 6 months." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, invited him in, watered, mouth dry, you know. And he said, Butler's been looking for you for 6 months to serve this draft notice. You got 24 hours to go across the river to New Cumberland Army Depot and get signed in and get processed. Guess where I was at the next morning, you know.
When you got signed in, you did the physical and all that, or?
Yeah, I got signed up, spent the night in New Cumberland. First thing the next morning was the dental, the mental, the AAFES written test, haircut. It took about 3/4 of a day to get that initial in process, and especially the haircuts, because that was just about almost first in them days in the old federal building down there.
Now, at the end of that day, where did they ship you off to?
Fort Dix, New Jersey.
And what did you learn there?
That was my basic training in infantry AIT, and how to walk in sand and not kill sand fleas.
At that time, were you still using the M1 Grand?
Yeah, no, the M16 just started taking over.
Oh.
The M1 was in process, but when everybody got in the country, and the M16 was starting to take over.
So you did your basic, and after you sat down, and I'm sure everybody, your sergeant came along and said, "You're going here, you're going there." What happened at that time?
They split us up into, I'm assuming they had the results of the APHIS test, so they started splitting this up into scoring, MOS classification, where everybody was going to go eventually. And then we ate chow, had supper, and about, I must say, 7, 8 o'clock at night, loaded us up on buses, took us to the train station, and shipped us to wherever we were going across the country, or to the airport to go to Travis.
Well, you went to Fort Knox.
I went to Fort Knox, yes. 11 Echo School.
And that's what, 11 Echo?
11 Echo's armor, tankers.
Were you not first designated as a telegraph?
Yes, but somewhere between my fingers not working with my mind or whatever it was, I couldn't pick up the coding and the tapping so they took about 2 days to figure that out. And I knew I was having a hard time. So they said, roll up. You're going to 11 Echo. I said, okay. Rolled up and went.
Okay. So, what were some of your happy times in the mud?
Pulling busted track. Everybody pulls track. It's just, you know, if you didn't break a track, you didn't graduate. Basically, you learn how to pull a track, set up a track, or the intentional, let's just tear it apart and learn, because that's the most important thing at the time on the M60s, was that track. And then learning how to load certain heat rounds and certain rounds where they go in the turret and the weight of each.
Well, once you completed your training there, where were you off to?
Kirchgorns, Germany.
And what did you do there?
Went in initially as an 11 Echo, as a tanker. And upon our initial interview with the Command Sergeant Major and the battalion commander, they were looking through my file and they saw that I worked for Dun & Bradstreet, credit reporting business company. And the Sergeant Major offered me, he said, we need a battalion mail clerk with experience with credit reporting standards, whatever their criteria was. Would you like it? And I said, I'll try it. So they tested me. I maxed the test. 2 days later, I was the battalion mail clerk.
And that required you to go about in a Jeep? Or?
I had my own Jeep. I had my own transportation. Every morning I would go to the APO, pick up the mail that was designated that night for us, bring it back to the mail room, sort it for the companies for the 1300 pickup, because we used 2 pickups because we was always out in the field. Daylight pickup in the afternoon for the guys out in the field to get the afternoon delivery. And then I'd go back twice a day to the APO, sort. Once a night I would go to the mailboxes of all the units, collect all the mail, sort it, hand carry it back to the APO and sign it over to them, and we'd continue, every day was basically the same, basically.
Well, the good thing, it kept you out of the field.
Kept me out of the field.
Yeah.
I would go to the field to deliver the mail, get all the scuttlebutt and all the guards, I would be out there. But there was times I would go out and spend the night. If it required for my MOS, because in the Army, every MOS has to go, you got to know how to function in the field. I would go, but not for the 3 or 4 or 5 months. I would go for a week or 2, where armor sometimes would go 6 months out to Hornsfeld and Graft and while flicking,
So, at some point, that ended.
Yeah.
And where you were off to from there? Did you leave the service?
At the time, it was an early release program that the Pentagon or DC put in for the draftees. We got released 90 days ahead of time. So I took my release in March of '72 and went to civilian and went to Wyoming to work with my family building the Jim Bridger power plant. And I stayed there 2 years.
What happened at the power plant?
I was a punk iron worker, learning the ironworking business, and I got a call one day I had to go home. Well, what was left of my home burnt down to the ground. And we lost everything in the fire. So after the insurance claims and everything, I got my check and my payoffs, and I came back to Butler until '74 and went back active duty because there was no work in all in Butler. And I had a little bit of money from the burnt trailer, so we used that to finance the move, and I went back active duty then.
Were you married at that time?
Yes. Yeah.
And that was what wife?
2.
The second wife.
Yeah.
I lose track of this.
Yeah, me too.
So, you came back into the service, you got E3 right off, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And tell me about, your service. So where did you go to? You went down...
When I came back in, I went to back to Fort Dix for an issue of clothing, and it was night. They knew, the cadre in Dix knew I was coming. They just didn't know who I was. So like a smarty, I'm standing in the last rank in the corner spot. Nobody's going to see me back there. And a Spec 4 come up and he came right back to me. He said, "You're the retread, right?" I says, "Yeah, I'm the retread. You're now acting platoon sergeant. Get up front." So I pushed. It was an AIT company. I pushed through AIT. They made me an acting jack sergeant, and I was a junior drill sergeant, and I pushed my first AIT company through the entire 8-week cycle of 64 Charlie, which they awarded to me because of my prior service experience. I didn't have to go to 64 Charlie school. I was awarded it, which gave me the acting jack, which authorized me at the time to push the troops through.
Anything happened during that time when you were there?
Fort Dix?
Yeah. Pushing the smart Alex.
Yeah, I learned it. I think I started learning what I was cut out to start to learn. I started observing people, learning things, people's cleaves, their little niches, and I got into the point to where I didn't try to read into them, but I tried to understand them before they understood me, so I could stay that little step ahead of them. And that was the beginning of, I think, of my career in the Army, is doing that kind of a job. But while I was there, I got to go to the Playboy Club in New York City, spent the weekend there, because their weekends were off, but we couldn't be associate with them. So we'd go to the Playboy Club in New York every weekend, up on Broadway by the theaters, and watch the acts and the dancers and stuff, which was kind of cool. Yeah, I never saw it before.
So once you pushed the first one through, then where were you off to?
I left Fort Dix, came down on a levee for Korea. Yeah, Korea. Was it Korea?
Vietnam, I believe, at that time.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm backwards. I'm sorry. Got lost. Went over across the pond and seen that part of the country for a while.
So, during that period of time, you were there, what was that, 67 to 68?
67, 8.
So, what were some of your duties during that time?
Basically, infantry and armor. I cross-trained and did everything that a grunt would do at the time, you know.
So, where were you stationed at?
Outside of Docto.
Outside of Docto. At this point, I would say for people who are watching this, check the history of the unit at that particular time. So,
Grandchildren.
yes. During that particular time, if you would check your history on Docto. So, tell me about life outside the war. What was going on in your patrols?
Hectic to a point sometimes. If the mosquitoes didn't try carrying you away, the rats tried to eat all your chow. You constantly had to have a towel wrapped around your head, moist towel, to keep the mosquitoes from eating you alive. The rains that would come from different directions at the same time. Basically trying to get a nap when you couldn't sleep, you know, and keeping one eye open this way and the other one open this way, because you never could tell. But the lack of sleep, lack of concentration, after a while toes on you, and you get a little out of whack.
When was the first time you heard a big cat?
60, end of 60, end of 67, I'm going to say. Somewhere in that
What did you
time
think
frame.
about that one?
Won't go into that.
What about some of the snakes?
Oh! Most biggest, deadliest, I never seen such a collection of snakes in my life. And they were all deadly, I think, for except 2 of them. 2 or 3 weren't deadly, and the rest of them. And we carried machetes, and sometimes the machete wouldn't kill them, de-head them. You had to keep that machete razor sharp just for your own defense because, well, they roll up on you and carry you down the trail and you'd be gone. Because that's how bad. But there's a lot of dangerous, poisonous snakes in the country. Lots of them.
Tell me about on some of your patrols walking through the bush. What was pouring down on you and your clothing?
Agent Orange, the powder, the liquid. If you wore your fatigues, jungle fatigues, or your jungle boots long enough, it would start eating holes in them. You could leave them on 3, 4, 5 days sometimes, depending on your mission, because you didn't have a chance to carry a backpack with clean fatigues or nothing in them. But after a while, it starts. When you come back out of a sortie or a search and destroy or something, you could actually brush the stuff off you and shake it off your fatigues. And nobody knew what it was. Well, we knew what it was, but nobody knew what it was.
Tell me about the nights and the nice weather.
Charlie belonged to the Knights. Charlie owned the Knights. Myself and a bunch of us, we'd stay in close to our hooches. But we wouldn't go out into the villas unless we knew the ville was buku secure. At least us. Mm-hmm. I had no hurry to come home in a bag. And the nights were it was beautiful country. The nights could be peaceful, the stars, breezes blowing, until you heard that branch snap. Then you knew it's about to change. But the nights they could be peaceful and very serene.
The fragrance of the country.
Oh! As soon as you landed, and if you come in on a 130 or a 141, and that back door opened up, the heat was like walking into a brick wall. And the smell that would hit you immediately thereafter, you never forget it. Never.
Fragrance of burning.
Yeah. The old saying, like they said in Apocalypse Now, the smell of napalm in the morning,
Yeah, and the smell of burning.
Yeah. Yeah, because everything got burnt.
Yep.
Everything had to be burnt.
Let's talk about, just briefly, we'll touch upon your bad day, the worst day you had, your unit had.
Was out on a search and destroy and got bad intel and found out we were kind of outnumbered, and the survival mode kicks in. And when that survival mode kicks in, you're a changed person. You have no fear or no regret of killing somebody because you have to survive. 5 of us made it back. And then the guilt sinks in. Why us and not them? And you carry that for 55 years. And even today, most of us still carry it. A lot of them, we've learned to control it through other groups. But there's still certain things I see or hear in a store or in a mall, and bingo, I'm ready to fight. And at death's door almost, but I'm still not afraid to fight. I went after a guy in Walmart a couple of weeks ago because he was grabbing his kids and shaking them in the aisle. My girlfriend and her sister took them too to get me off him. That's how quick it comes. And out of a minute, he had no appreciation of his kids. You know. And kids are valuable, even over there kids were valuable. So we learned to stay away from them. You had to stay away from them because of other circumstances. That was probably the worst day. But not many, don't get me wrong.
No,
there weren't
they
many, but everybody sees it, lives it, don't forget it.
Tell me about their buses over there.
Maximum capacity, we called them kimchi buses. It was a slang that we used in Korea and there, because that's to us is slang, it's falling apart. They would have some poor bus that was made in 1952 that was designed for 20 people, and they'd have 181 people on it, and they would use some kind of rope strap invention to hold them in because they'd be hanging when the bus would make a sharp turn or get caught down in a rut. The driver knew how to start wheeling the wheel, and they would try to tilt, and the people, civilians, were holding on, and they'd be falling off over the ropes, under the ropes, holding on to the strings, people pushing them off the rope because they didn't want off the bus. They were tying themselves to the top of the buses. It was a fiasco.
And they're utility workers.
Yeah.
Tell me about those.
The funniest thing, first or second funniest thing I ever saw was, what are they doing?
They're dumping.
Oh, the dumper. Okay, I'm sorry. One of the two funniest things I ever saw in country was, I saw two guys going down the street in a little mudville, and a third one carrying a bag, brown paper bag. And they went up to a light post, supposedly they call it street lights. And these two guys with the poles, which were about 10, 12 foot long, would put the tips of the poles together standing on the ground. The third guy would climb one of the poles with a light bulb, reach up, unscrews the light bulb, climb down the other pole, go on their merry way and do it to another one. And they wouldn't tie the two poles together or loop them together. That's how much balance and intricacy these guys had in coordination. Unbelievable. It was neat to watch them, some of their tactics and how they carried their stuff in their aid packs and stuff. It was we wouldn't even conceive doing stuff like that. But they would move half a village in a half a day on their backs. You know, it was neat, kind of neat to watch.
Take on a moped.
This farmer had a little moped, we called them moped, motorcycles. And on the back of it, pair running strapped to the back of the motorcycle seat was a propane tank. And on the propane tank was a pig laying. And the pig was drunk, tied to the propane tank and to the fender of the motorcycle, or the moped. He came around a muddy road. The roads were deep in ruts this deep, and he came around this way, and the back wheel got caught and spun him into a bus. But the bus coming this way hit that valve on that propane tank, the right angle, busted propane tank valve off, and he took off like a bullet. And then he smacked into the side of a bus. I don't know how many people got killed because that tank blew. But just the right angle, he must have been doing 110 mile an hour when he punched that bus. It's funny now, but back then it wasn't. But today, to look back on it, it was kind of funny.
Sometimes you go into the bigger cities and whatever, and you get to try some of the foods there, and oftentimes you'd be standing waiting across the street and you'd hear somebody behind you giggling. What was that about?
That was Couldn't figure it out at first, and I had my arms behind my back, just holding like Odyssey, you know, standing there, because we kind of mimic him in a way, you know, here's Odyssey. And that's how I picked up the habit. And I felt the hair on my arms moving. And it's the time I didn't think nothing. I thought it was a fly or something, you know, trying to carry me away. And I heard giggling. And the next time it happened, I just turned around, and there was 3 Ajamas back there. And they were playing with the hair on my arm because men don't have hair in their arms over there. And then they covered the face. And they did this for 4 or 5 minutes till we could get away from them and get across the street. And they thought nothing of it, you know. It was just an experience to them to see hair on somebody's arms, I guess. Really weird.
And you attended a wedding, I guess, every
Yeah, I had a chance to go to a wedding. Elaborate, very orchestrated. The money that is spent with the families that had it, the gold, the ornate gowns, the outfits each man, the husband and groom, the groom and the wife wore, and the entire entourage of the families, especially the wives, because it's like here to a certain degree, the families finance the wedding to a certain degree, but the attention to detail and the beautiful designs and how they could use gold and stuff in their dressmaking. It was fabulous. This is almost, him and the Koreans had it very tight with their pride of especially weddings. Yeah.
Well, after a year or so, your tour ended. I'm sure you had a short timer's calendar. Mm-hmm. And at that particular time, you were out in the field, though. And Sarge came over to you and...
Time to pack up.
So, you made on down to the landing zone and jumped on board the helicopter and made it to, what air base did you fly out of? Travis. But when you got to, no, you fly out of.
We flew out of,
that's all right.
My brain fried.
Yeah.
Give me a second. Come on, everybody flew out of it.
I went out of Da Nang.
Da Nang! Damn, yeah. I'm sorry.
You basically, you were still in your fatigues.
Yeah.
Were you not?
Yes. Rotten in office. Had the smell, had the grunge feel. Yeah. Boots were turning funny colors. Jungle boots.
They gave you a shower there?
Quick shower, in and out, and get loaded. Some people didn't get a shower. Not all of us did, some of us did, depending on how short we were to get airborne.
But you said there was a Korean gentleman there measuring you up.
Oh, that was in Travis, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's when we got to Travis. That's okay.
You boarded your airplane.
Yeah.
And you sat down, and it started to roll down the runway. What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
First thought was, will this bitch get off the ground safely, you know? And as the speed picked up, we knew we were leaving. We were getting out of country. And when that front wheel lifted off, that tarmac, the party started. And it was almost the better feeling than the first time I saw the wall. But it was a relief, like 50,000 pounds came off your shoulder, especially when you knew that whole bird was off the tarmac. And you were home, going head no more incoming, no more outgoing, no more claymores, no more nothing. Your biggest worry was, will that beer still be cold when the stewardess gets it to you?
So you made your trip back to Travis, and then you got off your plane. What happened at that point?
You come off your plane, walk through the wing at the time, and inside the double doors they open up and they call what is the Heroes Hall. It's all the GIs that awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. Pictures were on the wall, dividers, both sides of the wall. And from the time you were told what you're about to expect, you didn't hear one word from that door until you passed the last Medal of Honor recipient, just out of pure respect for the award and the man, but more so for the award. After you got through the wall in the Hall of Fame, craziness broke out. Everything, your mind shifted real quick. 8 people were telling you 9 things, and you're going, where am I at? You're lost. You're in a different world. But you start your showers and the procedure to get out.
So at some point, that's when the Korean guys started measuring them up. And
you come through, you hand over your paperwork to a clerk. There was a table full of clerks. One would get your finance records, medical records, whatever you had, and you'd pass it down. And when all that finished, there was a little Korean guy there, and his entourage, he made and redid all the gave us new uniforms. But he could measure you within 35 seconds, 50 seconds, a minute to the max, and that uniform would fit perfect. He would give you your towels, your soap, underwear, down go take a shower, shampoo. And you didn't know how long you had because you're used to taking quick showers, and you're gone. So feeling a hot water shower for 10, 15 minutes. So after you got your shower, you come out, you got your underwear, you start down another line, and they give you your meal ticket. And by the time you got to the end of that table, because you had to, I think if I remember correctly, we had to change our SGLI standard because we're free now. We're out over. There was a bunch of stuff we had to do which took very few seconds, but it was all paperwork. The uniforms are right there. Named, ribbons, perfect. Sleeves, perfect. Stripes, service stripes, combat, everything was right. Got dressed. They handed you your meal ticket again. You want steak, chicken, whatever you wanted, and they had on at the time. You went and you sat down in the mess hall, ate your meal, and the hardest thing was to get used to was I can chew it, instead of wolfing it down and leaving half of it. And then you go from your meal to get your money, you tell the clerks how do you want to get home, fly, bus, train, hitchhike, whatever the choice was yours. They give you your ticket, or the cashier give you your ticket, draw your travel pay, take you out to a central area, wait for the bus to come, take you out the main gate, listen to the hippies crap for 10 or 15 minutes, because sometimes we couldn't get off post right away. Once the MPs would have to come out most of the time and and get us out of there, and we would hear, take your uniform off, don't wear your uniform. Oh bullshit, I earned this uniform, We found out what they meant when we got to either the bus station, train station, or because I made the fatal mistake. I wasn't taking, it's not a mistake, but I wasn't taking mine off. They didn't like me, and took the bus across the country because I wanted to get off see different things. It took me 4.5 days to get home. My mom was waiting at the bus station every day,
At some point you did arrive at Pittsburgh, and at that time there was a hamburger chain.
Yes, White Castle.
White Castle. They were cheap and they were little.
Oh, but they were good. That was home. We knew we were home. Yeah.
So you headed back on up to Butler, and that would have been 68-ish.
Bus left Pittsburgh at 5:30.
And
get us into Butler about 8:30 because they'd catch the morning traffic working either way. We'd get home about Butler, depending on traffic and wrecks, about 8:30, 9 o'clock, yeah.
What was going on in Butler at that time? Anything?
Nothing to me. There was no... I came home, next morning, just relaxed. First place I went, I had to go to the hot dog shop and have 3 or 4 or 5 hot dogs, french fries or gravy, and a Pepsi. And then my mom caught up to me because she knew where I would be. She took me home and tried to feed me more, but I was full. But so the next morning I went down to the unemployment office to sign up for work and to draw unemployment if I could. And at that time, there was 2 guys working the old unemployment office on Cunningham Street. The old, it's now a lawyer's office. But anyhow, so I go in there and find out that the 2 guys were on vacation for 2 days, and they wouldn't be back. So I just roamed around for 2 days, and just caught on the sights and kept saying, Butler hasn't changed at all. And you know what, everything we've gone through. So I hung out at home, went to visit some buddies, because I had a couple buddies in Nam at the same time, were in Marines, the Schaefer brothers. And we went to high school together. And I went and dug Kirby up, and we hung out. And, you know, just did normal, worthless, nothing to do. Got a couple brewskis down at the Alhambra.
So, there's nothing, well, I'm sure you drew your unemployment and you looked around for work. But there was nothing really around Butler.
The mills started, Pullman I think was already gone. Armco at the time was in the midst of going, shutting down, cutting back. It got so bad then taxi drivers and the Fuller Brush Company was the main employer in Butler at that time for people like us. No matter what people say, we were welcome home. There was no work for us. The minute they looked at that 214, we'll let you know. Thanks for coming in. And that's what the cycle was. To a point now, I got a job pumping gas here and doing something here, little things here, but it wasn't. And back in them days, I think when I got out, I was bringing home $76 a month or something. Big money. I couldn't get that here. Because the minimum wage was what, $1.35 or whatever it was then. So my only choice was, I told Mom one morning I'm going to re-up, and went down to the recruiter and re-upped and went back.
Did you end up at Fort Dix again?
Yes, sir. New uniforms and supposedly boot train, because I was a retread. And when I got there, it was at night. And I thought I'd be slick because they knew I was coming. I got in the back rank, back in the corner, 11, 12 o'clock at night. And this spec working on something. He says, "Where's my retread?" And I'm burying my head. He walks right to me. Right to me! Like I had a blinking light on. "You're my retread. You're now platoon sergeant. This platoon's yours all through AIT." They made me an acting jack sergeant, and I was stuck with 49 troopers. Not stuck, but don't get me wrong, but I ended up that morning at midnight with 94 souls that I was now responsible for.
So you pushed them through there, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But you did have some time off to go over to New York.
Yeah.
What did some of the things you do in New York?
Playboy Club, up at the theaters, down from Broad Street. I'd never been in one, and then we could get in free if we on active duty. And it was one of the only places that gave active duty freebies, was Hugh Hefner and the Playboy Club. And when they were a bunch of us would go down every Saturday and watch the dancing girls and just get shit drunk, have a good time, and come back to Dick's Sunday afternoon or late early Monday morning, and back to pushing troops.
Well, after that sequence of troops went through, where did you go to from there?
I finished pushing troops, and I came down on a levee that was for Korea. First time, that was in 70. Right, yeah, 70, I came down on a levee for Korea.
In 70 to 72?
70 to 72, yeah. I went to Korea in 70s, stayed, it was a 13-month tour there. I stayed 13 and did a 13-month extension. And that gave me 26 months in country on that tour. And I was in a transportation outfit, and I taught Korean Katusas how to drive trucks, tractor trailers. That's what I basically did. And that was an experience.
For entertainment, what did you do there during?
Just be an average GI. Till I made E5. When I made E5, I had to make that brutal change because of circumstances, but I wasn't any different than the other jet. We were lucky on our compound. We had a swimming pool and a tennis court, but we were also, it was a Sergeant Missile nuclear outfit. So our lives could change instantaneous in a matter of a blink if something happened, or if, you know, the balloon went up, because we had 3 nuclear warheads at Camp Coburn. We were part of the 4th Missile Command. When they went, we went. And we had an attachment back in them days, nobody knew what it was. Today it's Airborne D. But we had an attachment then. When the 82nd Airborne went on alert in Fort Bragg, we went on alert in Korea with the missiles, in case we had to lock up with the 82nd. Because they were a quick reactionary force back in those days.
Now, these, I'm sorry, what was the name of the missile?
Sergeant Missile.
Sergeant Missile, yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sergeant Missile, the Sergeant Missile. But you had special adaptations for your particular unit.
Yes.
Could you go into that?
We were basically a quick reactionary force, a team for South Korea. An incident occurred, we were the first alerted, and we were the first to wherever we had to go. Locked and loaded. It would take us 38 minutes to have all 3 missiles, nuclear warheads, locked and loaded and 0 downrange. And one time we did it. We had to go into full-blown alert and do it.
Well, that was over some people on the bridge.
Tree branch, bridge of no return. It was a big old branch. Now we were about 30 miles from Panmunjom and the bridge. Obstruction from the tree branch, we couldn't see the north, and the north supposedly put it there, the tree there, so they could watch us. After months of back and forth, our commander-in-chief said, cut the branch down. So they took a Katyusha augmentation from Panmunjom, which was all them 6'2", 4 Korean Katyusha Rock Army soldiers, the White Horse Division, 2nd ID, which was us out of Camp Casey, Panmunjom, and a construction team went in to the bridge, and the tree was more on the North Korean side, they say, than it was on our side, and we said. So they cut the bridge down. North Korean soldiers opened fire on the team. They killed an American major, a Katyusha, and 2 or 3 other Koreans, and a civilian got wounded. But we went in and moved the branch. And we got the order when the officer got ground, when he hit the cement, the missiles were activated. And that's how close the president had to step us down, because we reached that calm point, whatever it was called back in the day. When we reached that 4th calm or whatever, the button was going to be pushed. We made it that close. President backed down, but the North Koreans allowed us to go collect our officer. So peacefully, in their own way, everybody got what they wanted, except we lost the major out of the ordeal. But we got the North Koreans' attention.
Now, was that the tour where you got married in Korea?
Yeah, the first tour, yeah.
And then, what happened? Well, like, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Did you come back to the States at any particular time?
At the end of my 2nd extension, I came back because, well, I had my young daughter, and I had my 2 years in, so I came back home, went to Fort McClellan, Alabama, which was another Airborne D post with the 82nd Airborne. And I went there and spent some time. I was there in this world 4 or 5 months and put in a 4187 to go right back to Korea. I was not a stateside soldier. I preferred my duty overseas, and got lucky and got it.
No, you got issued an M16 on that trip back, didn't you?
Yes.
Let's go into that a little bit.
My wife and me separated while I was on leave. So I didn't have nothing to do, so I was supposed to be reporting in February. I went to Travis in January and reported in. He says, I was E5 then. The guy says, Sarge, you ain't supposed to be here for a month. I said, well, personal reasons brought me here. I said, I split my marriage. Oh, okay. So they signed me, and he said it'd be 3 or 4 days before I get out. I said, okay, I'll wait, you know, no biggie. Second day there, I hear my name being paged. I says, oh, here we go. And I go up to the desk, and this NCO E7 says, are you Powers? I said, yeah. He says, you got a top secret security clearance. I said, yeah. He said, come with me. Him, me, and 2 MPs, and one of them's carrying an M16. Go out the back through the back doors in the hallway. Took me up to a C-130. Handed me the M16, 2 brown bags of lunch, 2 drinks, and said, do not get off that pallet. And here comes a pallet on a forklift, camouflage netting down, strapped down, tied down, and they loaded it on the bird, and I sat on that pallet from there, Travis, to Hawaii, Wake Island, Guam, Philippines, finally to Korea. Took me 5 days to get to Korea. When they got to Korea, the other guys on the plane had to be taken off before that cargo came off. And to this day, I do not know what was on that cargo at all. And they had 2 20-round banana clips with me.
So, on your second tour in Korea, what went on there?
I got assigned to a transportation company, and we taught Korean Katusas, Korean augmentation to the United States Army. They were GIs, ROC GIs, but they all had education and spoke English. We taught them to drive 40-foot tractor trailers, and all they ever rode was a bus. That was an experience, but it was a good experience. I learned so much from these people, you know, attitudes, outlooks, but I enjoyed it. It was a good tour, I extended another year. It was good.
So, at some point after that, you came back to the States?
Yeah, I came back in November of 90. November or September of 90, I forget. But towards the end of 90, I came back home.
August of 91?
Yeah, that's it. Okay, yeah.
And but during that time, did you get married again?
Yeah.
What happened there?
We were married, and when I got back, we got married, and we lived in Baton Rouge. And there was nothing in Baton Rouge for me either, so I went and we moved to Vegas because we heard there was a lot of work in Vegas, which there was. So we moved to Vegas. I worked for Manpower Medical Pool for a couple years until I got into working for the state of Nevada in their corrections department, and I worked out at Indian Springs, Southern Desert Correctional as a correctional officer until the Gulf War started, and my ex-wife now was in the reserve unit in Vegas, and they got called up, and she went to the first Gulf War, and I stayed in Vegas with the youngins.
So, after in '92, when everybody came back, where were you off to from there?
We went to Fort Huachuca. We decided she wanted to stay on active duty, so we went to Fort Huachuca, where they brought them back from Iraq out processing. We were there 4 or 5 months, and it was all TDY at the time because of her status. So in the 4 or 5 months that we were there, for the paperwork, we had to go to Albany, New York, to see something about the Army, some big command sergeant major, for some paperwork that required, because she wasn't one of the few that did this. And then we went from Albany, New York to the Pentagon, saw the Pentagon command sergeant major. He cut her orders that afternoon. We went back to Huachuca, packed up the clothes, and she went that next morning to Germany, where the unit was sent on active duty as full active duty troop. I stayed in Huachuca for a couple weeks until she got quarters in the Mannheim, or not Mannheim, but in Augsburg, and then we went to Augsburg. I went over as a civilian with the kids, and she stayed active because she was a nurse. She worked in a hospital in Augsburg.
Now, when you did you find any work there for yourself?
Yeah, I worked with a German outfit that moved PCS moves, of packed household goods, and whole baggage, part-time. And then I got super lucky and got into packing commissary groceries with all the dependent wives. And I was the only guy packing commissary from 10 to 3. And I made more money at the commissary than I did packing furniture and moving GIs back home. And I did that till we all came home in March of '84. I made great money at and who would think, at the commissary. But I was making over $100 a day bringing it home. It was unbelievable. And in that days, tax-free, $80 or $100 a day, that's good money.
Well, you came back to Butler,
Yeah.
and what happened there?
And I came back to Butler. I went to work. My oldest daughter got me a job with PARC, P-A-R-C. It's a company that does housing for mentally retarded, ill, crippled kids and people, grown-ups. I stayed with them for about a year and a half maybe, and then I got on at the Butler VA. Took that job real quick, and then stayed at the Butler VA till December 7th, '05, and I retired in Clear Post, December 7th, '05, and I retired in '05 at 58. So I used my Army time and my 5-year mandatory lock-in and retired.
Now, since that time, your retirement, have you done anything or just relaxed?
Just hogged out. I've done some things, but nothing crazy anymore. Well, nothing real crazy anymore. I rode my motorcycle until a couple of years ago. I've been coast to coast, shore to shore on my motorcycle through the years. And I've done little odds and ends. I was into remodeling mobile homes for a short time. But I just kind of kicked back and relaxed. And I said when I retired, I thought it'd be later in my life, but I got lucky, retired at 58, and then enjoyed up until January of this year. And I loved it.
And what happened?
I got diagnosed stage 4 prostate cancer, and that's now 95% of my bones are gone. It's going up my spine, and it's in my neck now. And I'm in hospice care, home hospice care, till it gets worse. And then
Thank
I'll go
you
into
for your
full.
U.S. government, Agent
welcome.
Orange.
Anytime I'd do it again tomorrow if I had to. Tomorrow.
I would like to thank you for your service at this time.
Thank you, I appreciate
very
it.
much.
Considering they're, no offense, it's 50 years. But I'm amazed. Yesterday somebody did the same in Walmart, because I was in my cart, and these 2 guys, as a matter of fact, shook my hand and thanked me. And the one guy came up and asked me, and I said, yeah. And I was surprised I got more respect from these guys today than we got when we came. And it's not only me, it's all of us. Don't think it's just me. It's not just me. It's tons, buku of us are this way. But it's unbelievable how they have respected us since Afghanistan.
Yep.
And when the truth came out about us. And it's a relief. It's nice to hear. I'm serious. It's nice to hear. But I would do it again tomorrow. Call me up and I'll go out the door in this condition and do 100% that I could do.
Thank you.
Well,